Welcome to the California Competes application workshop hosted by the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. My name is G and I will be presenting the webinar with my colleague Brandon. In this webinar, we will go over the tax credit and grant program information, the evaluation criteria, the application deadlines, process and guide, and we will go through an example application. The California Competes tax credit and grant programs are available for businesses that will be creating quality full-time jobs in California. The California Competes tax credit is a credit that goes against the income tax liability that is due to the Franchise Tax Board. The credit is non-refundable, but it does have a 6 tax year carryover. So if you have unused credit, you can use the credit in a subsequent year. The California Competes grant program was specifically created for businesses that are unable to take advantage of a non-refundable income tax credit. It's intended for businesses that have either significant research and development tax credits or net operating losses resulting in little to no tax liability, and startups with little to no tax liability. There will be an agreement with the hiring and investing commitments. The company must meet these commitments in order to claim the credit, and there are recapture provisions if the company is unable to meet those commitments. The California Competes grant is available to businesses of any size that meet at least one of the following criteria. The business will create at least 500 new full-time jobs in California, or will make at least 10 million of capital investments in facility construction and or renovation in California, or it will create the jobs or make the investments in an area of high unemployment and or high poverty as defined in the California Competes tax credit regulations. Now remember, the business must meet just one of these criteria in order to be eligible for the California Competes grant. Here are the evaluation factors that we will review. Just to name a few, we look at the number of jobs to be created or retained, the compensation paid to the employees, the overall economic impact, and the training opportunities offered to the employees. Now keep in mind that the purpose of the California Competes programs are to incentivize the creation of new quality full-time jobs in California. In addition, GO-Biz is also required to evaluate the extent to which the credit or grant will influence the applicant's ability and or willingness to create new full-time jobs in California that might not otherwise be created by the applicant or another California business. So let's break this down. We are required to evaluate whether this credit or grant will be a material factor in the company's ability or decision to create new jobs in California. So let us know how will this credit or grant, and more specifically, the amount requested, factor into the applicant's ability or willingness to expand in California. Help us understand how your business is making a decision whether or not to expand in California or expand at all. Walk us through your decision-making process and provide us with a rationale for the amount that the business is requesting. Now, this is probably one of the most important components of our program, since the programs are to incentivize the creation of new full-time jobs that might not otherwise be created in California by the applicant or any other California business. For more information, please review the frequently asked questions on our website. For the tax credit program, there is $180 million allocated per fiscal year. The minimum credit request is $20,000 and the maximum credit request is $60.9 million. For the grant program, there is $120 million allocated in one-time funding. The minimum grant request is $5 million, and the maximum grant request is $36 million. For this fiscal year, we have $304 million available for the California Competes tax credit program, and it is broken up into 3 application periods, which is listed here. Our application process is completed 100% online. You can access the application on calcompetes.ca.gov. For more information about our program, please visit business.ca.gov/CalCompetes. There you will find FAQs and an application guide and various other resources. Unsuccessful applicants may resubmit applications after updating the employee, investment section, and the current tax year. Please view the FAQs on how to resubmit. Application and award process is a 4-step process. We have phase 1, which is a quantitative analysis, which is a cost-benefit ratio. Phase 2 is a holistic review of both quantitative and qualitative factors. For the agreement step, this will show the commitments made by the business that will then need to be approved by the California Competes Tax Credit Committee. And then after the committee approval, there will be reporting requirements with GO-Biz and the Franchise Tax Board. Phase 1 evaluation is the cost-benefit ratio, which is the amount of credit or grant requested divided by the aggregate employee compensation plus the aggregate investment. The aggregate employee compensation is the amount of employee compensation paid over the 5-year agreement. The aggregate investment is the amount of investments over the 5-year agreement. Now there will be a review of the top 200% of applicants. Now there are some exemptions to the phase 1 calculation. GO-Biz may move an application to phase 2 regardless of the ratio if the applicant certifies that, absent award of the credit or grant, the applicant's project may or will occur in another state, or the applicant may or will terminate or relocate all or a portion of its employees to another state, or at least 75% of the applicant's net increase of full-time employees will work in an area of high unemployment or high poverty. Now, if moved into phase 2 because of one of these exemptions, we will request for you to submit a signed affidavit certifying this is truly the case. Now, here are the legal definitions for the high poverty and high unemployment areas. It is saying that it is a city and/or county with a poverty or unemployment rate of at least 150% of the California average. Now, the high unemployment and poverty areas are defined for you. When completing the application, there is a link that you can click on to see all of the cities and counties on the list. In phase 2, we will be reviewing the extent of unemployment and poverty, the number of retained employees, the wages, the benefits, and the training opportunities offered to the employees. The most competitive applications will advance to the agreement step. This is where all the terms and conditions of the agreements will be laid out. It will have the number of jobs to be created, the minimum employee compensation, the amount of investments, the credit or grant distribution period, and the recapture provisions if the company fails to meet those commitments. Now, all credit and grant agreements must be approved by the California Competes Tax Credit Committee, which consists of the State Treasurer, Director of Department of Finance, 2 legislative appointees, and the Director of GO-Biz. Here we have a milestone chart. This is the last page of the agreement, and it lays out all of the commitments that the company has agreed to. It is a summary of the goals set. It includes the number of jobs to be created, the minimum and average wage, the investments, and the tax credit distribution period. Just like widget manufacturing, you do not have to have growth in employment or investment commitments in each of the 5 years. After the committee has approved the agreement, we post the agreement to our website. We do not post your application, but we do post the agreement that shows what the commitments are. We have over 1,100 awardees. For a list of the awardees, please visit our website and under Resources, click on Tax Credit Awardee List or Grant Awardee List. The Franchise Tax Board is responsible for the oversight and accountability of the programs. FTB will have access to the application and all documentation. FTB must review the books and records for agreement compliance. Now, this is not an audit, it is simply a review of the books and records. FTB will inform GO-Biz if they find that the company is in material breach, and we will do our best to work with you to avoid material breach and the recapture of the credit or grant. The committee approves or denies the recommended recapture. Now I will go through some of the definitions before Brandon presents the application itself and goes through the example. The project is the applicant's proposed business venture that will result in the expansion in California. So this is your 5-year growth plan that you outline in the application. The applicant is the legal name of the business that is registered with the California Secretary of State or otherwise legally authorized to do business in California. The base year is the most recently completed tax year. So for calendar filers, your base year is 2021, as that is the most recently completed tax year. For fiscal filers, that may vary depending on your tax year end date. So you might still be in your 2021 year, so the most recently completed tax year is 2020. This is a full-time employee growth program, so we are only wanting to know about the job creation of full-time jobs. Please don't include part-time employees in your growth plans. For the CalCompetes program, the definition of a full-time employee is an individual paid wages for services in California of not less than an average of 35 hours per week. These are going to be your W-2 employees, so do not include contractors. The annual full-time equivalent is a method of accounting for full-time employees that worked or will work less than a full year. So for example, if you have an employee that works the entire year, they will be considered as 1 on an annual full-time equivalent basis. If you have an employee that works half a year, they will be considered as 0.5. And if you have an employee that works a quarter of the year, they will be considered as 0.25. The aggregate employee compensation, this was mentioned previously, it is a way of accounting for the wages of its new employees for the full 5 years. Now for the wages, please only include the base wage. So do not include any other compensation. Do not include the tips or the overtime or the bonuses or commissions. We're just wanting the base wage to be included. The investment is the amount paid for real and personal property purchased or leased after the close of the current application period. For real property, this can be land or anything that is attached to it. An example will be an office building, the tenant improvements, or the construction. For personal property, these are going to be items typically depreciated on a tax return. Examples are computers, furniture and fixtures, vehicles, software licenses, manufacturing equipment. But things that do not qualify will be the cost of gas, the labor, or the office supplies. The California Competes grant program has 3 criteria, and a business must meet at least 1 in order to be eligible. If the business is seeking to meet the investment criteria, here is the definition. The business must commit to investing at least $10 million in construction or renovation expenditures in California over the 5-year agreement. In order to complete the application, you will need the payroll records for the full-time employees employed in your prior tax year. This will be your base year. You will also need your 5-year business plan that includes the number of jobs that you will be creating, the job classification and wages, and the amount of investments that you will be committing to. Now I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Brandon, who will go over creating an account and an application.
Hello, my name is Brandon. I'll be taking you through the rest of the webinar. In order to work on an application, the first thing you'll have to do is create an account. The application website is www.calcompetes.ca.gov. When you click Create an Account, you will be prompted to enter the following information on the page. Be sure to enter the email address that you plan to use when you log into the application. When completed, click Create Account. Once you have created your account, you will be able to log in to the CalCompetes application portal. To log in after creating your account, you will need to enter your email. Note, there won't be any passwords to remember as our system will send a unique 6-digit key to your listed email address each time you log in. If you don't receive the key within 30 seconds, it more than likely went to your spam folder. If you continue to have issues, please reach out to us directly at 916-322-4051, and a team member will be able to assist. This is the landing page you will see once you have successfully logged in. Here you will be able to create a new application, or if you are a returning user, you will have access to any prior applications that you have worked on previously. To create an application, you'll be asked to indicate the application type. Select either grant or tax credit, and again, you can only apply for one. You'll enter in your legal business name and also indicate if the business has previously been awarded a California Competes tax credit. Next, you will indicate the applicant's current tax year as it relates to the last day of the current application period. Then you'll look at the tax year accounting period end date, as in whether you are a calendar year or a fiscal year tax filer, and then you'll click Create Application. This drop-down will specifically appear if you are applying for a grant. These are the grant qualification questions referenced earlier. The applicant must answer yes to at least one of the 3 questions to be deemed eligible to apply. This is the home page you'll see after creating your application. You'll notice it has 11 sections and everything is red right now on the right side. As you complete each section, it will turn to yellow. And once you press the complete button, the color will turn green. You will not be able to submit until all sections are green. This is the contact information section and is the first section of the application. The section is straightforward, but please be sure to have multiple contacts added if possible who can speak on behalf of your company. We have had several instances where we have had difficulty getting a hold of people. Primary might be sick, on vacation, or whatever the issue might be. We are required to operate on very short and tight deadlines that is required for the various phases of the application. If we cannot get information from a business, unfortunately it can and has resulted in the loss of a potential award for companies not responding on time. So to reiterate, please enter multiple individuals if possible. In the business information section, the applicant will enter its headquarters or primary place of business. Note that the business headquarters does not need to be in California in order to apply. And lastly, you will enter the North American Industry Classification Code at the bottom of the screen. You'll need to visit the NICS website to find your appropriate industry code. Link is embedded in the application. In the business structure section, you will tell us where the entity is registered and what type of entity it is. The entity type will give a drop-down selection, so that could be an LLC, S Corp, C Corp, or even a sole prop. Just let us know what kind of business you are. There is some logic built into this application. These fields will generate further questions to answer depending on the response. These are the type of questions that would be populated in the event of an S corporation. Is the applicant publicly traded? Is the applicant incorporated or otherwise qualified to do business in California? The applicant will also need to tell us the state of its incorporation. For the proposed project section, the applicant should describe the proposed business venture or expansion in California. The box will allow for 7,000 characters, and in that box, please provide a description of the applicant's business and a detailed description of the proposed project. Additionally, please include an in-depth explanation of how award of the credit will impact the applicant's ability and/or willingness to create new full-time jobs in California that may not otherwise be created by the applicant or any other business in California. So you will want to describe your business and give us a narrative about your company and the project. Who are your customers? Where are they located? Where is your competition located? What challenges is your business facing? What is it that your business is going to be engaged in that will result in the creation of new full-time jobs at your business? And why is this award a critical factor in your ability and/or willingness to expand? You have a lot of space to describe who you are, your customers, what your plans are for California, and how an award can help you get to where you want to be. This is really the part where applicants can make themselves stand out from other businesses. Remember, this is a competitive application process and you are competing against all other applications. And lastly, if you're requesting, let's say 5 million, tell us why you are requesting that amount. How did you arrive at that number? Why not 20 million or 200,000? Why is this the amount that will make a project viable for you in California? Just remember, more detail is generally better here. If you are looking out of state, tell us your options. Tell us the quantitative differences and what steps have been made. This is not a writing contest by any means, but please paint a complete narrative for us so we understand. Proposed project section does have additional yes and no questions just regarding your project. In addition, on the very bottom, you'll see an empty box for the total amount of California Competes tax credit requested, and for grants, it would essentially be reworded for grants. This is where you'll tell us over the next 5 years how much you are requesting. So if you want 100,000 a year, do not put 100,000 in this box. You'll put 500,000. Understand that this is the total requested over 5 years, and do keep in mind the minimum and maximums mentioned earlier in this presentation. For the proposed location section, just let us know where the jobs are going to be created. If there are multiple locations, please choose one as the main where the majority of the job will occur. If you are uncertain but have at least a general idea, narrow it down the best you can. Is it in Southern California, Northern California, Greater Los Angeles, Bay Area? Give us an idea of the general area. For the employees section, as mentioned previously, this is where you'll want your payroll information and business plan readily available to reference. You'll want to report your existing number of full-time employees in California as of today. In question 2, we ask the existing number of part-time employees in California. This is the only part of the application where we ask about part-time employees, simply because we want to know if you're primarily a full-time employer or a part-time employer, or a mix of both. Question 3 and 4 just tell us the combined part-time, full-time total employees in the US and worldwide, and this will enable us to know the size of your business. Then you'll tell us your hiring plans the next 5 years moving forward, but I will expand on this topic later when we talk about our fictitious business. For the investment section, tell us how much you plan to invest for the project over the next 5 years. You may want to reference our investment key definition slide earlier in the presentation regarding real and personal property investments. Just a reminder that the first year, the current tax year, needs to occur after the close of the current application period to count. If it occurred prior, as you could imagine, it would be difficult to assess how an award would ultimately factor in your decision to grow in California. If you do have questions, please contact us directly. For the ownership section, tell us who owns the business. If there's anybody or any entity that owns 25% or more, let us know here. And if there are multiple owners, you can add multiple owners in this section. For the incentives and programs section, please let us know what other incentives your business might be utilizing for the project. GO-Biz does have a number of other programs available, and we want to know in case there's any other help GO-Biz can offer you and to make sure your business is utilizing everything you can potentially be qualified for. This is the litigation and violations section of the application. When you go through this section and look at the questions, let us know if any of these are applicable to your company. If your business has been involved or owner has been involved in any material litigation in the last 10 years, please describe it to us in the box included. In no shape does it automatically disqualify a company. We understand that obviously any business operating at any size in California or the United States will likely go through some sort of material litigation or fine of some sort as part of its general operation. It happens and we understand, but please provide an explanation to us of what happened and how it was resolved. If you're using a consultant to prepare or submit this application, please let us know the fee structure or arrangement here. If you move to phase 2, we will ask for a copy of the arrangement with the consultant. Once you've gone through the entire application, all sections will be green and the submit button will now be active. Please be sure to click the submit button to advance the application. You will have to agree to the conditions, so please review this closely. Once it has been reviewed, click Submit. Once you have submitted your application, you will receive this confirmation email. We'll now be going through an example application. So this is an example application for a fictitious business known as widget manufacturing. It has 50 full-time employees and 3 part-time employees. So a small to mid-sized company. It plans to hire 30 full-time hourly employees in its 2022 tax year. Proposed employees will be paid wages of at least $35,000 and an average of $40,000 on an annualized basis. Additionally, it plans on hiring 10 salaried employees in 2024 at $80,000. And it will invest $10 million in 2023 and $7.66 million in 2024. This is the project description for widget manufacturing. Widget manufacturing is essentially a manufacturing company located in the city of Anonymous. They have seen consistent growth over time and manufacturing is at capacity and they need to expand to meet further client demand. It does move on to tell us what the proposed project is and is expected to cost $10 million. The project will include some investment costs that it does outline and they anticipate hiring 40 employees. They then outline that they are exploring all options, including out-of-state ones. And it does mention its customer base and that it's not regionally tied to California. From my perspective, try to go into more detail than Widget did. I'll start with the last part as an example. Tell us why you're requesting the $800,000 as it doesn't tell us how exactly they arrived at that amount. That would be one of my first questions if I was reviewing this application. Is that the difference in the operating costs for the next 5 years? What are those operating costs? And if you were to open in Houston, for example, would the energy costs be higher? And does that factor into the amount of credit requested? Whatever the rationale, please describe that in this section here. It really helps us understand, and in general, more detail would be better. Widget is again asking for a total of $800,000 over 5 years. This is not $800,000 per year. We have now come to the employees section. Like I've stated earlier, they have 50 full-time employees currently. This is the current head count. They have 3 part-timers, and this is the only time in the application we will be asking about part-time employees. The existing part-time and full-time employee total is 53. It looks like it plans on hiring 30 employees according to question 5 in current tax year 2022. These employees will make at least $35,000 minimum and an average of $40,000 on an annualized basis. You'll see question 8 will be the number of employees hired after the last day of the application. In this case, that would be August 15th, 2022. In this case, 8 of the 30 employees would be hired after the last day of the application. This would suggest it may have already hired 22 of those employees. According to Widget's business plan, it does not plan to hire any new employees in the following tax year of 2023. But in the following tax year in 2024, you'll see in question 12 that they will hire those 10 salaried individuals making at least $80,000 minimum in average. And then looking at questions 15 through 20, it looks like Widget does not plan on making any additional hires in 2025 and 2026. This is the base year calculation. This is what I would call the employment section. And this is definitely where you'll want your payroll records nearby. For the base year, you'll use payroll data from your previous tax year, which in this case is the 2021 tax year. The books are closed so they can sort their payroll data to identify all hourly full-time employees for question 22. These are hourly full-time employees that worked at least 1,750 hours or more during the 2021 tax year. In this case, Widget sorted its payroll data and 32 hourly employees fall under this bucket. They would then resort for each of the categories below. Question 23, they have 12 who worked on a salaried basis at least 50 weeks or more in 2021. They resort payroll data again and look at the number of hourly full-time employees that worked less than 1,750 hours during 2021. Again, these are all full-time employees, but maybe they had 7 individuals who started the year with them and left the company. They may have been terminated, and maybe they hired some other individuals midway through the year to replace. These employees would fall into this bucket. Question 25 asks the total number of hours worked by these employees. So you take the total number of hours for those 7. They report 5,964 total hours worked for those 7. Our system will divide that by 1,750 to get an annual full-time equivalent for those 7 employees. Same with question 26, but they had 3 salaried employees that worked part of the year, and they worked a total of 48 weeks according to question 27. For the 2022 tax year, they will do the same thing, but will be using employment projections for 2022 and onwards. They expect 34 to work the entire year on an hourly basis for question number 28. For question number 29, they have 12 salaried individuals working the entire year. Question 30, you'll see they have those 30 new employees they plan to hire in 2022. They don't expect any of them really to work 1,750 hours. It looks like they're planning on average that they will be hired partway through the year. They don't think any of them will qualify for question 28. So for question 31, of those 30, they think those 30 will work a total of 15,000 hours in 2022. The system will take that and average 500 hours per employee and come up with an annual full-time equivalent for those employees. They expect 4 employees working on a salaried basis will work part of 2022 for a total of 46 weeks. You'll see here the system's calculation for AFTE on the very bottom. Based on the base year, it looks roughly a net of 7 employees for 2022. For tax year 2023, they will carry forward 30 new hourly employees. They will now fall under the bucket of now working the entire year or more than 1,750 hours. So now they have 64. Question number 35, they will have 14 employees working a salaried basis for the entire year. So now they have a total of 78 employees for the 2023 tax year on a full-time equivalent basis. for the 2024 tax year is where they expect to hire those 10 new salaried employees, which you can see in question number 44. They expect those 10 employees to work a part of the year for a total of 300 weeks. Based on the projections, it looks to be about 30 weeks in a year. This is where the 84 full-time equivalent comes from. In the next year, 2025, they carry forward the 10 salaried employees hired in tax year 2024. And you'll see now in question 47, the total is now 24. The previous year, it was 14. They have gone from 59 in its base year up to 88 in 2025. That's a net growth of approximately 30 individuals on an AFTE basis. For the 2026 tax year, Widget isn't doing any more hiring, so they're just carrying everybody forward. They kind of expect their job growth to end by 2026 at 88 full-time equivalents. The aggregate employee compensation will calculate when you complete the section, and in this case, it is $7.21 million. For Widget's investment section, they project, as they stated before, the new facility will cost approximately $10 million in 2023, and additional machinery in 2024, making an aggregate total of $17.66 million. You can see how the investment is structured in this section. Now that we know their credit request of $800,000, the aggregate employee compensation of $7.2 million, and their aggregate investment, which was $17.6 million, the system will now be able to come up with a ratio. This ratio is what will be used to help determine whether the application moves to phase 2. So widget manufacturing ratio, which is the credit request divided by the aggregate comp and investment, their ratio in this case is 0.032. Is this good? Is this bad? Know that the cost-benefit ratio changes each round. We will never know what the cutoff ratio is going to be going into phase 2. Sometimes this ratio will be good. Maybe in other rounds it may not be as competitive. To give you some historical information, on the next slide we'll be looking at the last 4 application periods. The ratio in this case would have advanced to phase 2 in the previous tax credit round. We do post this information on our website under our FAQ document. If Widget's application was a grant application, it would not have advanced to phase 2 in the previous grant round. In the previous grant round, we had received over $3.4 billion in grant requests. Again, please note that the cost-benefit ratio does change each round. If Widget was offered an agreement, this would be the milestone chart found on the last page of a signed agreement. Their base year was 48 individuals. This is everything straight from their application, and this is ultimately how our agreements are developed. Whatever the business says in its application that they're committing to will get put into this milestone chart. So if you look at it column by column, if Widget gets to those 56 total California full-time employees in 2022, pay those new 8 employees at least $35,000 and an average of $40,000. They don't have any investment commitments to make in that year, and that's fine. But if they do that hiring and wage requirements, they will get to claim that $150,000 on their tax return for 2022. That following year, if they grow to 78 employees on an AFT basis, they pay those 30 new employees at least $35,000 and an average of $40,000. And make that investment of $10 million that they said they would do. If they do all those things, then they would be eligible to claim another $400,000 on their tax return. Lastly, this is one of the neat aspects of CalCompetes. Let's say if Widget had a change of business plan and something occurred in 2022, say they didn't meet their hiring expectations or they couldn't find the right employees or wages were lower than expected. If they catch up the following year, while they may not have been able to claim the $150,000 in 2022, if they catch up the following year and meet the 2022 milestones, all of them, they can potentially claim $150,000 in 2022 and the $400,000 in 2023, on their 2023 tax return. Widget has all 5 years to catch up. That does conclude our presentation. If you do have any questions at any point during the application, please do give us a call. Our number here is 916-322-4051. And we also have an email address at calcompetes@gobiz.ca.gov. Thank you.